In the last video, we started our metric conversion introduction, and the last board looked someone like this, showing you the different, the chart with multiplying when you go that way and dividing when you go from smaller to greater. So, I want to show you today one of the things that is so wonderful about the metric system is the fact that it is on this base unit of 10, and so it does make converting very, very easy. So in our last video, you were introduced to metric conversion, what it takes to do that. This chart looks a little different than the chart I showed you before. Here is the chart showing you by tens which way to go, whether you divide by 10 or multiply by 10. Again, it's that larger to smaller or smaller to larger that determines that. But now that you've kind of worked through this, I always need to show you the basis for what we do, and then I can sometimes give you a shortcut on that. So, this video is going to give you a little bit of the shortcut on that. Up here, and I usually do this anytime, even as a teacher, I've had to take different tests and do different things. And when I'm doing anything with the metric system, again, you have that conversion, the reference sheet. I'll show you that. You still have that reference sheet. And there are lots of metric conversions on here. But there are some things that I just think are easier to remember in my brain. And so I've taken that chart that you saw in the last video, and up here I wrote these letters. And these letters are straight from that chart, but I have to have a way to remember it. And this is how I remember. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Now, chocolate milk is not going to get you. But this is just the way I remember this particular thing. So King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. That helps me remember kilometer, or kilo, hecto, deca. Base stands for meter, liter, or gram. Those are our base units of measurement. And then the D here is deci, centi, milli. So King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Remember, in our other chart, we had arrows that showed us to multiply if we were going one way and divide if we were going the other way. And really, because it's in those base of tens, basically when you multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, you are changing the value of that number by changing the decimal point. Now, what I want to tell you today is this number right here is 400. I don't see a decimal point. I don't see a decimal point in any of my numbers. So I'm going to tell you something right now. If your number doesn't have a decimal point, it goes at the end of the number, just like a period goes at the end of a sentence. So you wonder, oh, do I put the decimal point? If this were my number, I'll put it down here. 361. Where does the decimal point go, Miss Weaver? Do I put it here? Do I put it here? This is how you remember. The decimal point, if a number doesn't have one, that's a whole number. This says 361. But I want a decimal point in it for today's activity. It goes at the end of the number, just like a period goes at the end of the sentence. Okay? So, in this first one, I have 400 with a decimal point. That's the end of my whole number. I'm changing from milliliters to deciliters. Now this is the deci, this is the deca with the K. This has the C, so it's here. I'm going from milliliter to deciliter. So from this point, I'm going 1, 2 spots, and I'm going to the left. So I'm simply going to take my decimal point and move it 1 spot, 2 spots. spots to the left and change my decimal point. That is the same thing as our little chart that said divide by. So I have simply moved it over, so I know that 400 milliliters equals 4 deciliters. I can prove that to you by doing what our chart said to do. Our chart would have said we're going over to the left, we must divide by 10 squared, or 100. 100 into 400 is 4. I didn't want to have to do all that dividing. I wanted to simply move it. Let's try another example. 400 again. Where does the decimal point go? It goes at the end of the number, like a period goes at the end of a sentence. I'm going from milliliter to liter. Where's liter up here? I don't see an L, but it's under the B for base unit of measurement. So I have from milliliter, I have 1 movement, 2, 3. So I'm going to take my decimal point. I'm going to, since I had to move left, my decimal point goes left. 1, 2, right in front of the 4. So 400 milliliters equals 0.4, 4 tenths, and usually you don't like to leave them hanging. Usually have that 0. So 4 tenths of a liter. Let's do another. 9,824. Where does that period go? It goes at the end of the number, like the decimal, like a period at the end of a sentence. I'm going from decimeter to hectometer. So I'm going from here, deci, to here. So I'm going to move over 1, 2, 3 times to the left. So I'm going to take my decimal and move it over to the left. 1, 2, 3 times. So 9,824 decimeters equals 9 and 824 thousandths of a hectometer. Look at my numbers. I didn't do anything. I just moved that decimal point because that was telling me to divide by 1,000. Let's go from grams to milligrams. I don't see a G, but here is my gram. And I'm going to go to milligram. Now, I don't have a decimal point. Where does the decimal point go? It goes at the end of the number, like a period goes at the end of a sentence. I'm going to put this one right here so we can see it. We're going to go from gram to milligram. So we're going to go this way. 1, 2, 3 spots. So from gram to milligram is 3, and I'm going to the right. So I'm going to have to move my decimal point to the right, but there's nothing to move it to. So I add a 0. And I move it over once. How many times was I supposed to move it? 3 times. So I'll add another 0, and I'll move it twice. Is that enough? Not yet. I'm going to move it, add another 0, and there we go. 7 grams equals, where's the decimal point? I moved it way over here. 7,000 milligrams. If I'd gone back to my original chart, it would have told me to multiply 7 times 1,000. And what does that equal? 7,000. So again, you are moving your decimals. I want to show you just a couple right here. Oh, I've already forgotten. King Henry died, that's Deca, by drinking chocolate milk. I do this every single time I think about it in my brain. So I need to know. I'm just making something up. I wish I could hear you shout something out. Let's have 75 kilometers, and let's find out how many meters that is. And meters is here under the base. So how many meters is that? So where does the period go? At the end, the decimal goes at the end, like a period at the end of a sentence. And I'm going from kilometer to meter. So I'm going once, twice, 3 times. And which way did I go? I went that way. So my decimal is going to go that way. So if I move it, I have to have a 0. Move it once. That's my once. Add another 0. Move it again. I had to move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my decimal. So 75 kilometers equals 75,000 meters. All I did was move the decimal point. However many it goes from one to the other. Let's do one where we're going to go left. Let's do, I don't know, I'm just making numbers up. I have no idea. Let's put a decimal in this number. Let's say 67 and 12 hundredths. Centigrams. And which way shall we go? I won't have very far to go that way. Let's go this way. Let's go to decagrams. Okay, here's my decimal. I don't have to put it at the end because it's already there. I'm starting at centigrams. Let me use a different color so you can see it and not be confused. I'm starting at centa, so I'm going to go, I'll come this way. Once, twice, 3 times. It happened to be 3 again, but it doesn't always. So I went to the left 3 times. So I'm going to take my decimal once, twice. I don't have enough. I need to add a 0 so I can put it right there. I've moved it 3 times to the left. So my number is 0.06712. And it's good manners to always have a 0 holding that one spot. So all we did was, instead of doing all that multiplying and dividing, we simply moved our decimal point. You may need to come and watch this a couple of times before you begin, but this is part of what makes the metric system so very easy when you convert.